My name is Droven, and I'm back with more Reddit stories. And once again, I am not AI. The first one comes from r/no sleep. I, 30 male, share an apartment with my friend, 30 female. I'll call her Gwen. Gwen has a lot of mugs, more than will fit in the cupboard all at once, so she rotates them seasonally. She loves swapping them out. I asked why, and she says it's like getting new mugs every couple months. But there are 2 mugs in her collection that never leave the kitchen. They are rarely in the cupboard because the second they're washed, she uses them again. We have a dishwasher, but it's broken. Part of our chore division is that we each take care of our own dishes. The thing is, I know she doesn't like doing her dishes. It's a sensory thing, but she insisted that we do our own dishes, and I thought that was pretty fair. I also know that Gwen's most favorite is her Spider-Man mug. She's never told me that. I can just tell because the Spider-Man mug gets picked up before any of the others when it's clean. I know this because I see it in the sink every day for her to wash before bed and her other dishes from the day. There were times that her dishes sat for a couple days before she could force herself to work through the sensory issues and get them done. It never got to the point of smelling bad, and she apologized every time for any of the dishes she left overnight. I truly did not mind when that happened. I understand the sensory issues, and I'm proud of her for keeping on top of it as much as she was. Now comes the part I need to get off my chest. The background info was important, I promise. Every time Gwen realizes she can use her Spider-Man mug, she dances an adorable happy dance while making her tea in the morning. She doesn't seem to realize she's dancing, or doesn't realize I noticed her dancing. Either way, it's my favorite part of the day when I'm getting ready for work and she dances a happy dance while getting her breakfast because she gets to use her Spider-Man mug every single morning. It seriously cheers her up, and she's been a lot more positive throughout the day since I started doing this. Gwen found me washing her dishes last week. I had been doing them for a while, but this was the first time she walked in and caught me bubble-handed washing her Spider-Man mug. Not gonna lie, I panicked. She thanked me for helping her and then asked why I started to do her dishes too. She even asked if I was annoyed by her dishes when she left them. This was absolutely not the case, but I couldn't tell her I watch her happy dances. That's creepy, right? But it's so cute and makes me so happy to see her so happy. If she knew I watched her, she would feel self-conscious and stop doing them. She's pretty shy about stuff like that. She won't sing in front of anyone, but singing is one of her favorite things to do, and I've caught her singing along to her music before she realizes I'm home more than she realizes. I also pretend not to notice when that happens. She has a really pretty voice. So yeah, I couldn't tell her why I'm really doing her dishes, or I would lose my favorite part of the day. I told her I like to get mine done every night. It's something my mom always told me to do. I was already there, so it wasn't a big deal to do hers too. It saves water, and she does a few of the household chores that I hate because she likes them. So I don't mind doing this one tiny extra chore that she doesn't like. I feel like I was pretty obviously not telling the truth, but I think she believed me. She didn't tell me to stop, and she hasn't brought it up since she caught me, so I still get to see her happy dances when she goes in the kitchen and sees her Spider-Man mug ready for her to start the day. Edit 1. Alright, I'm headed to bed. Thank you all for your comments. To clarify, we are just friends. We are roommates now, but we were friends first. Anyways, it's been fun, but it's 5 a.m. and I have an appointment at 10 a.m. This should be fun. Good night. Honestly, in my opinion, this dude's down bad. He's got a giant crush on Gwen. He won't even admit it to Reddit. I don't know what you guys think, but let me know down in the comments below. But, in my opinion, it's kind of obvious. Like, he loves this girl, and he needs to tell her. Alright, story number 2. This one's from r/no sleep. I tend to go for the stories with the craziest titles, just like out-of-pocket stuff. This one's, my neighbor has been beckoning my children from his window at night. Yeah, can't wait to see what this one's about. I, 33 male, live in Texas with my daughter, Alicia, 8, and my son, Jay, 4. Their mom has been out of the picture for the past 2 years, and I've managed pretty well as a single father. The 3 of us lived in a 2-bedroom in a nice neighborhood. I've got a solid job, and the kids are thankfully healthy. Everything was smooth sailing until one night, 2 months ago, during which I was awoken by Jay poking me in the face. He was sobbing violently, though I recognized it as the I'm afraid kind of crying as opposed to the I'm hurt kind of crying, which made me a little less worried. Jay's always been nightmare prone, so I assumed that's what was causing him distress. When I asked him what was wrong, he said, "The man in the next house is making scary faces at me." Okay, that's kind of wild. Um, I'd heard my fair share of Jay's stories about monsters terrorizing him from the dark corners of his bedroom, but this was something new. I assumed he meant our neighbor's house, and the lack of fantastical elements in his description made me uneasy. It felt too specific to just be one of his usual nightmares. I got out of bed and walked with Jay in tow to my kids' room. Alicia was awake in the top bunk. From the soft glow of their nightlight, I could see her crossing her arms and scowling down at her little brother. I didn't turn on any lights to give myself a better view of the outdoors and peered out the bedroom window. Their window had curtains on it, but for once they hadn't been drawn all the way, and there was a small opening between them through which Jay must have looked out. One side of the neighbor's house, the one to our left from the street, was visible from Alicia and Jay's room. There were 2 windows on the neighbor's side of the house, but it was too dark to see anything. I recalled from what I'd seen in the daylight that the window on the left, the closest one to the front of my house, was the kitchen. I wasn't sure what the window on the right was, as it always had its curtains drawn. I asked Alicia if she'd seen anything, and she shook her head. "He's always having nightmares and crying. I don't want to share a room with him anymore, Dad. I never get any sleep. It's not fair." Of course, hearing that made Jay start crying again, so I let him sleep in my room for the night. He has this TMNT indoor camping tent that he prefers to his actual bed. Honestly, at that point, I half suspected this nightmare to be a ploy to get me to let him camp. Anyway, I guess I'm a total pushover because he slept in the tent in my room for the next 2 nights. On the 3rd night, I was woken again, but this time by Alicia, who was standing over me and shaking my arm. That kid hadn't woken me up in the middle of the night for years. When I asked her what was wrong, she said, "The neighbor was making faces at me." Those words and the fear in my daughter's voice really put me on edge. I closed the curtains when I said goodnight. "Did you open them?" "Only a little, but it's 'cause I heard a weird noise." "What did you hear?" Alicia couldn't recall exactly. According to her, she had gotten out of bed to see what was going on, and when she lifted the curtain, she saw a light on in the neighbor's window. The curtains in the back room had been drawn back, and our neighbor was standing in his house right up against the window frame. What was he doing? Alicia thought for a moment, and then made an expression I never want to see on my child's face, or anyone else's for that matter, ever again. I won't do it justice by describing it, but it looked something like this. First, she smiled with both sets of teeth, so that there was a little open sliver between the rows, and then she furrowed her eyebrows. She inclined her head towards me, kind of Kubrick stare-esque, and strained the muscles in her neck. The worst part, though, was what she did with her hands. She held out her left arm, forearm up, then she clenched her right hand into a fist and moved it back and forth rapidly over her forearm. Poor thing described it as playing the violin, but it seemed pretty obvious to me that the neighbor was pantomiming cutting. Disturbed, I told Alicia to stop and to not make either expression or the gesture again. I was angry and confused. My neighbor, a man in his 40s, was a bit of a recluse, but he had seemed normal enough in the 3 or 4 times I'd spoken to him. I couldn't fathom why he would do something like that to my kids. After asking Alicia a few more questions, I realized that the neighbor might not have done anything technically, or at least legally, wrong. It wasn't against the law to make inappropriate gestures in your own home, but it seemed like he was targeting my kids specifically. Legal or not, I planned to have a little chat with him the following morning. My last question to Alicia was if our neighbor had made any other gestures, and she nodded. Then she started making beckoning, come here motions with both of her hands. I had Alicia sleep in my room for the night as well. I also checked out the window in my kids' rooms, but, like before, I saw nothing. The house was completely dark. The next morning, before work and after dropping Alicia and Jay off to school, I spent a good 5 minutes knocking on my neighbor's front door. I figured he was home since his car was in the driveway, but he never answered the door. Eventually, I had to leave for work, and as I was walking away, I turned around quickly to see if he was watching me. He was, the coward. I saw him for a split second at the front door window before he ducked beneath the sill and out of view. Clearly, the guy had problems. I yelled out to him to stop messing with us and then left. That same night, I put a plan in motion. While my kids slept in my room, I hung out in theirs. It was a Friday night, and I was ready to pull an all-nighter so that I could catch my neighbor in the act. Although I trusted my kids, I wanted to confirm that there was actually something nefarious going on before I escalated things. I made sure the house was locked up and all the curtains drawn, tucked my kids in, and sat on the floor under the window in their room. At around 9, I started marathoning Midnight Mass on my phone. I didn't want to wear headphones and miss any strange sounds, so I kept the volume low and mostly read subtitles. At midnight, I started to hear strange sounds. Like Alicia said, it's a bit hard to describe. Best I can do is that it was this low, repeating clicking sound. You know that ch sound you make to beckon a horse? It was something like that. All I knew was that the sound was undoubtedly coming from a person. After a few minutes of this, the sound switched to what I think was supposed to be a whistle, but it came out all wrong, like someone sucking breath in through their teeth. The sound was so crisp that the neighbor's window must have been open, which was an unsettling thought given that there was only around 15 feet of space between our houses. Certain that the neighbor was at his window, and that this was my best chance to see him, I stood up and pulled the curtain back in one motion. I saw him right away. There was a dim light on in his room, allowing me to see that horrible expression Alicia had made the night prior. It was one thing to see my child's recreation, but it was far more frightening on an adult. His window was indeed open, and his arms were stuck out into the cold night, violently swiping against each other in a grotesque mimicry of self-harm. When he saw me and realized that he was looking at another grown man and not some poor child, he stopped his erratic motions. His cartoonish grin faded, and another, more genuine emotion settled over his features: rage. The man grabbed the window and slammed it shut, then closed the curtains with the same forcefulness. I let my own curtain fall. I was a little shell-shocked, I think. Of course, I was perturbed by the sight of the man, by his face and his movement, and the fact that he'd been doing that for who knows how many nights in an attempt to frighten my kids. However, another detail stuck out as even more concerning to me, which was the fact that I genuinely wasn't sure if the man I had just seen was my neighbor. I'd seen him so few times in the years that I'd lived in that house, and I was just having trouble conjuring up his face. I sat on the floor for a minute, blood thundering in my ears. I definitely had enough evidence at this point to call the cops, right? Just as I was about to pull out my phone, I heard a tremendous smack against the glass of the bedroom window. After a brief hesitation, I pulled the curtain back again. There were no lights on in the neighbor's house, and there was also no one outside from what I could see. I pulled the curtains back a little further and saw a handprint in the top corner of the window pane. It's worth noting that our house is on a raised foundation, and that particular window is very tall. So even though the window is on the first floor, the man outside would have needed an insane vertical to get his hand up there. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. As I explained the situation to them, I quickly walked around the house to see if I could catch a glimpse of the man. My last stop was my bedroom. Once inside, I locked the doors, and while still on the phone with the operator, I took my handgun out of the safe in my closet. My heart was beating out of my damn chest, but I knew I had to stay calm. Even more so, when I saw that Alicia was awake and looking out of the tent at me, I reassured her in as few words as I could, whispering that we were okay, but we had to stay very quiet. I sat on the edge of my bed, my firearm ready and my ears straining. My kid's tent was in the corner, and to the left of the tent, in the middle of the wall and directly across from where I sat, was the window. After what felt like an eternity, I saw something. It was a cloudless night, and the moonlight was bright enough that I could see a silhouette through the white curtains. The dark shape was nebulous at first, but became more clear as the man outside stepped closer to the window. Somehow he knew which room we were in. The silhouette didn't move for several minutes, and I remember being thankful that, from the angle at which she sat, Alicia couldn't see it. Then something happened that I couldn't entirely wrap my head around. The man stepped back from the glass and raised his arms, making a Y shape with his body and his limbs. Only his arms were far too long. They seemed to be double the length that they should have been. Each arm was about the same length as his entire body. I thought at first that he was holding something, maybe two pipes that just appeared to be the extension of his limbs. But I could clearly see two hands at the ends of the extremity. Bro, is this Slenderman? Is this a Slenderman story? Anyways, continuing. I could see 5 fingers on each hand, flopping around as slightly as the man brought his arms closer to the window. Thud, thud, thud. I stood up and readied myself to shoot, but just then the sounds of the sirens pierced the quiet night. The man outside banged his hands against the window one last time, and then it was as if someone had sliced his arms at the elbows. His forearms seemed to shear right off, and the man took off running before they so much as hit the ground. When the police officers announced themselves, I answered the door and explained the situation to them. 2 officers, a man and a woman, asked me a few questions about my neighbor, which I assume was necessary to establish probable cause for a search. Once finished, they told me to stay inside with the doors locked while they investigated the neighbor's home. I watched them through the window of Alicia and Jay's room. They knocked on the neighbor's door, and when no one answered, they tried the front door handle. I watched the unlocked door swing open. The 2 looked at each other and then entered. I'm not sure what they found inside that house. All I know is that when they emerged a few moments later, they both looked very disturbed. When I went outside to ask what they had found, the female officer told me simply, "Your neighbor's dead." The rest of the night was a blur of strangers in uniforms filing in and out of my neighbor's home. Some came to my porch afterwards to ask me questions, and none offered me any answers. They moved with tight-lipped efficiency, their faces guarded, their words clipped, and at one point I wandered to the side of the house and found several people photographing something on the ground outside my bedroom window. Before they asked me to leave, I made out the gruesome shape of 2 human arms. The kids and I have been staying in my parents' apartment for months, and I think everyone, even Jay, is getting tired of the cramped living situation. We can't stay in the house. Alicia is way too traumatized for that, and I wouldn't be comfortable staying there while the murderer is still at large anyways. I want to sell the damn house, but our story going semi-viral is making that difficult. After all, who would want a house that, thanks to the news, has become permanently associated with phrases like dismemberment and days of torture and victim barely recognizable as human? I don't know, dude. That kind of sounds like Slenderman, to be honest. Like, that's a scary story. I'm shivering over here. Okay, let's look at some comments. The instant you mentioned 2 long arms, I instantly made the connection with his cutting arms gesture and went, "Oh, fuck, no," out loud. Oh, that's so funny. I just imagined the scary expression, and I think my imagination traumatized me with this. Yeah, I kind of feel that. All right, story number 3. This one's not quite as scary, but still got to go for the insane titles. My 9-year-old brother was emailing romantic messages to my uncle's girlfriend, and we had no idea. Okay, so this happened a couple months ago, but it's still living rent-free in my head, and honestly, I just need to get it off my chest. It's weird, kind of disturbing, and honestly, just a little sad. So, my youngest uncle, he's got a new girlfriend. No biggie, right? My little brother Nathaniel, he's 9, has always been super affectionate when any of my uncles brought someone new into the family. He gets attached quickly and just loves having more people around. Usually it's harmless and adorable, but this time, something was different. From the moment she was introduced to us, Nathaniel really took to her. Let's call her Anna. And to be fair, Anna was super sweet with him. She really understood him, took him to play with him, and was honestly just an amazing presence. When they came to stay for a 5-day sleepover, it was like their bond went into overdrive. Nathaniel followed her everywhere, talked to her nonstop, and she seemed genuinely to care for him in that nurturing, big sistery way. I was kinda happy for him. It was cute. After the sleepover ended, Anna had to leave for Thailand to start a new job and be with her family over there. We said our goodbyes, and everything seemed normal. Nathaniel asked her a couple of times, and we eventually helped him figure out the time difference so he could email her and occasionally call. This is where the plot thickens. We all knew he was emailing her. It felt innocent. I mean, what harm could a 9-year-old do with email, right? He'd always ask to use his hand-me-down laptop and be like, "I'm just sending something to Anna." We didn't think much of it. Fast forward to my birthday. Anna video calls us to wish me a happy birthday. Super sweet, right? We catch up for a bit, then she asked to have a private chat with Nathaniel. Odd, but again, didn't think much of it. But then, they disappear for a long time, like long enough for our mom to raise her eyebrows and be like, "What's going on?" She tells me to go check on them. When they come back, something feels off. Mom asked what the chat was about, and I told her I wasn't really sure, but it had something to do with something she had emailed him. Her face went stone cold. Total mom radar activated. She asked me to go get Nathaniel's laptop. She wants to see these emails. I open his inbox, hand the laptop to her, and just sit there. A couple of seconds pass. Then her expression changes from annoyed mom to straight up horrified. She turns the screen so I can see, and my stomach drops. There it is, message after message. Not just the I miss you kind of stuff. We're talking, I miss your kisses. I can't wait to see you again, babe. And even some cringy attempt at flirting from a 9-year-old. I almost threw up. I mean, look, I knew he had a little crush, but I thought it was like playground level crush. Like, I want her to play Mario Kart with me kind of crush. Not, I'm writing love letters like I'm in a Hallmark movie kind of crush. We were sitting literally a meter away from him when he was writing this stuff. None of us suspected a thing. And she never said anything to us about it either. She encouraged it. Some of the replies were like, "You're so sweet, Nathaniel. I miss you too." Like, what? My mom had a very serious conversation with both of them after that. Anna tried to brush it off, saying she thought it was innocent and didn't want to break his heart. But there's a fine line between being kind and letting a 9-year-old think you're in a relationship with them. Since then, the emails have stopped, Mom blocked her from Nathaniel's account, and we had to sit down with him and explain that what he was doing wasn't appropriate. It was such a weird, uncomfortable situation that none of us expected to deal with. Anyway, moral of the story, always keep an eye on the harmless kid stuff. Sometimes it ain't so harmless. Okay, so, not going to ignore the fact that she's definitely grooming this 9-year-old. Definitely, I agree with the top comment on this. Somebody contact the police. This is a screwed up situation. I get how it could maybe be harmless, but I would definitely be talking to the parents about this for sure. All right, here's the last one for today. It's pretty short, but game, respect, game. I got laid off and pretended I was still employed for months. Ended up getting a better job because of it. Back in August, I got laid off unexpectedly. No warning, no severance, just a, hey, we're restructuring, and a Zoom call that lasted 3 minutes. I panicked, couldn't tell my family yet, didn't want my friends or ex-coworkers to know, so I just pretended I was still working. Every day I'd log in, aka open my laptop and sit there like I was busy, told people I had meetings, walked around with AirPods in like I was on calls, applied to jobs non-stop in the background, even posted on LinkedIn occasionally about exciting projects at work just to keep the illusion going. Then something wild happened. A recruiter saw one of those fake posts, reached out, and asked if I was open to opportunities. I said yes, got an interview, lied through my teeth about the current job, crushed the interviews, got an offer, higher salary, better title, remote, actual work-life balance. It's been 5 months now, and I haven't told most people I was ever unemployed. Honestly, don't think I ever will. I used to feel guilty for faking it, but now I just feel relieved. The system's built on BS anyways. I just played along until it worked. This is so smart. People should take notes from this story. Because, correct, the system is a whole lot of BS, and she just kind of worked it out and figured it out for herself. Let's look at some of the comments. So the project you were working on was leading the organizational restructuring with updated contact roles. Then another one. There's no reason you should ever tell anyone. You did nothing wrong. You're doing what you have to do to care for yourself and your family. Okay, so here's a quick little update on the Minecraft world that I started. Making some progress. Have a little house here with a little cave next to it. Plan on making this my forever world since all my other ones got deleted. But anyways, thank you guys for sticking around and listening to the Reddit stories. We'll be back with some more for you later. Thanks. Bye.